This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Agner. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by an old friend of mine, Michel Nematnejad. Did I say it right? Did I get it? All right. From a million different things. He's founded a bunch of different stuff that you didn't even know about. I've known him from Mila Labs. Michel, hello, my friend. How are you? I'm great. You told me a really cool story about liquid death, which I'm obsessed with, which I didn't get on camera. Maybe we'll circle back to that later. But tell me where you're from, man. Where'd you start your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so I'm originally Swiss, born in Switzerland, grew up in the UK. I came to the US for college. I went to NYU, where I studied economics and computer science. It's interesting, I wasn't really sure where I was going to go after I graduated. In the senior year, everyone was applying for different companies. I figured, why not? I started very late, the interview process. I applied to 4 companies. I got to final rounds at 3. And I got a compelling offer from Deutsche Bank, actually, to do the graduate training program. I figured, why not? Pays better than I did during college, why not? It was good, it started off really good. It was a great learning experience to do the corporate route. They put you through rotations, you do everything from application architecture to software development. I was specifically in the trading side, so futures and options, back office operations for the entire trading of the global trading. I did that for a couple of years. Then I went and joined a team called DBIQ, which is Index Quant. That was a highlight of my time at Deutsche Bank. It was a great experience, really solid team. Clients were all MIT quants. Really a lot of job satisfaction and pride in what I did. It's you're learning about all these different financial instruments. You're working with maybe some of the smartest people in Wall Street. I loved it. I was there during the financial crisis where I was really in the thick of it in terms of developing software and supporting different financial products. And then the financial crisis really changed the industry in many ways, where it was really risk off and people were not really being so adventurous in the instruments that they were creating. I moved to the credit trading side, where while it was a strong team, it wasn't for me. I just didn't like it as much. It wasn't exciting. I didn't have the same responsibility which I had in my previous role. Long story short, I think in 2013, right when I got civilly married, not my real wedding, but I got civilly married because here I was sponsored. I left Deutsche Bank and we traveled the world for 4 months, me and my wife. We went to 6 continents, 17 countries. Real, just jet setting from continent. Went to all places which I never thought I'd go in my life. After 9 years, I was really burnt out. Not just working on Wall Street and going into those big tall buildings and working on the same platforms and applications. I went traveling, really eye-opening to see the rest of the world. Everywhere from Galapagos Islands, Argentina, Machu Picchu, Panama. I went to Israel, South Africa, Dubai, Australia, New Zealand, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Singapore, and a bunch of other countries.
Yeah.
And 4 months later, we're back in New York, no job, living with my parents. And my wife tells me she's pregnant. So I'm like, oh boy. The last thing I wanted to do was to go back to Wall Street. But what happens? Headhunter calls me and says, I have a job you're perfect for at JP Morgan. I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, you know what? I have to take the interview. I go for the interview. I thought it went terribly. I answered all the questions, but I thought the interviewer, he was very, how should I put it, not very warm, very cold.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little rusty from not touching software for 4 months, 5 months, or whatever it was at that
Mm-hmm.
point. I thought I botched some of the answers. Next thing I know, they want me to come back for a second interview. I interviewed with the whole team, and it's interesting. It's the lesson to be learned is when you don't want something so much, it's almost like it tickles them. They're like, "Oh, you're too good for this job."
Right.
The
Right.
next thing I know is they offered me a job, which paid me very well to be on the trading floor at JP Morgan in the headquarter building in the city, in New York City. I actually liked it. It was a little bit difficult to get back into the flow of things because I've been traveling for a few months, but you have no choice. You're starting a family, and I ended up really enjoying it. I really learned a lot of new things. It was working with traders. It was a nice, prestigious role to have on my resume. Um, 2 years into the job, a situation came up where they wanted to promote me and keep me because of my IP knowledge of the systems. I get a phone call actually from a woman I interned with during college. So this woman that I randomly met, she owned an insurance company. She texts me out of the blue after 15 years and says, What are you doing with your life? I'm like, I work at JP Morgan. She's like, I need a head of IT, someone to drive the insurance company forward. I said, let's talk. Because it was a pretty good situation where both JP Morgan want you and a insurance company, head of insurance company wants to hire you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to like land a pretty good position from both sides had I chosen to stay. But I figured that this was a really good opportunity to just start a new challenge. Leave Wall Street, start a new industry. It was someone actually named it very well. It's being the instead of being the tail of a lion, being the head of a fox. Right.
I like that.
So being
Yeah.
a nobody in JP Morgan or being like an executive at an insurance company, I couldn't really miss that opportunity.
Right.
In the end, you could say the package at JP Morgan was a little better because of benefits and it being a big company, but ultimately I just wanted to just try something really new. And because it was a small company, which is a lot less mobility, I put myself in I had a pretty good package put up for 2 years. And me and this woman who's a good friend of mine, we decided if it actually works out, great, but we don't know how it's going to work out, right? I was on a big contract. The company wasn't that big, and they had very high expectations for growth. I said, if it doesn't work after 2 years, that's fine. We'll all be friends. It just so happened, so the insurance industry was going through a difficult time because of the amalgamation of different lead aggregators and the fickleness of consumers, the business wasn't growing as we had hoped. In fact, it was shrinking to many regards. With accidents going up, claims going up, rates were going up, and just Geico was really steamrolling a lot of our business. At the end of the 2 years, we figured it might be a good time to part ways. And at which point I said I am not going back to work for another corporation. I have to start my own business. I think my wife was pregnant with my third son at the time, my third child. I'm like, if I'm going to put these guys through college, I've got to build myself a business to have a platform for them, right, to give them the life that they want. And I said, there's no better time to do it. I was 35 at the time, but I figured now is the time. So I decided to build a data analytics agency. Now, the problem is that I had never, ever had to acquire a customer personally before. I'd never had to solicit any business in my life. It was always internal clients or captive clients within an operation. I had to go after my own business. So I started this data analytics, great, really cool name, bought the domain names like every other business. The first thing you do is, because you don't know what else to do. I went to some industry conferences, and I just didn't have that killer instinct of hunting for a customer.
Right.
Really difficult. Especially when it came to like data analytics, you're going after big contracts, you need to like maybe subcontract some parts of the project. So in tandem, because of my experience with insurance, which we were spending millions in marketing or lead generation a year, I was my fingers really dirty with marketing. Google Ads, Meta Ads, that whole stack of different marketing products, digital marketing products, which I really got my head around because I was just like diving into the data so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like conversion rates, cost of acquisition, like that whole data model I understood very well. That process flow, building a funnel, building an acquisition funnel. And then I have friends who were looking for digital marketers. I'm like, you know what? Why didn't I do this while I build out my data analytics business? And lo and behold, it was picking up. I did one account, I got two accounts, three accounts. My digital marketing business really accelerated. And what would be now 2018. In tandem, the basic way to go approach that was, it was going through Upwork. It took me some time, but I built a really strong profile, 100% rating.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, when we connected, you approached me for the project for Purify. That was actually my second big project on Upwork. I had another project for a shipping company as well, which was doing very well, where we're building like calculators and different data models and calculators. The project for Purify was very different. I don't know how much we can talk about it, but basically it was the work which people were hiring me for was like advanced Excel work, building data models, building custom measures and metrics to calculate the performance of an aspect or the entire business. So you can roll up the measures up until the whole organization to see how the business is doing.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable with it. Like executives and CEOs that come to me, and the wheelhouse isn't working with data models or building dashboards. They have certain numbers that they like to look at. My job was to create those measures and calculations and introduce them to different insights, which allows them to basically make better decisions for their business. And that's when you brought me in. I think that you could say the project we did together was very similar. Right. It was a lot of like technical problem solving. There's also working as an external, as a contractor working with internal employees. There's a certain amount of flexibility you get because you know you're not there for a long time. You get to do a job and you don't have to worry about any politics or anything like that. Your job is just to get the job done. It's very performance based and short-lived. The business, both the data analytics business of building different types of reports and calculators for businesses across the country, was on one side, and the other side was my marketing business, which eventually evolved to like local businesses, e-commerce businesses. Now I've got a portfolio of different customers that I cater to on the marketing level, and some of them they just keep me on as an advisor. They have an internal team of marketers, but they keep me around just to keep their employees in check, report to them the numbers, show them the dirt. Because with marketing, you can always show the good numbers. You can always show the happy numbers, which makes the executives happy. Revenue is great, but then your cost to buy that revenue was stupidly high, right?
Right. Yeah.
They bring me on to just speak plain English with them, or some of them even call me the translator. I translate the information for them, which is, I actually really enjoy it because you don't have the stress of performance, but you get to really introduce different ideas, show different strategies, really work closely with these executives, which are working on very different businesses, which I love. So now at this trajectory, am I talking too much, by the way? I don't know. No. So at this trajectory, what I'm really focusing on is, rather than building a business just through referrals and these freelancing platforms, is to actually build a business. And this is my struggle. My struggle has always been, do I keep these businesses separate or do I sell them as one? Do I build a business that is digital marketing and data analytics, like a one-stop shop? Or do I keep them very separate because that's how people purchase it?
Right.
This has always been a back and forth in the back of my mind. Obviously, I prefer to keep it as one because it's a very unique concept to have data analytics and digital marketing. It's something, I'm serving the needs of different businesses, but different sides of the business. So one could be on the financial side, on the operational side, and the others could be on the sales and marketing and lead generation side. What I decided to push is just to push it as one brand and basically push all these different products that's a one-stop shop. And I don't know if this is right or wrong. It's diametrically opposed to the idea that if you niche, you can focus and specialize and just grow.
Right.
It's a lot easier to
Yeah.
do that versus like just casting your net out too widely and not catching anything.
So do you apply your own techniques to your business?
Sure, absolutely. I'm very organized in how my business is, I guess, how the P&L of my business. Thankfully we have 5 kids now, and it's
Oh,
chaos
congrats.
at
Look at
home.
you. Me too, buddy. We're five kids strong.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got
we
10
did.
kids to feed?
10, yeah, we could play basketball against each other, I think, at this point or something.
You
We
bet on
should.
my kids though.
I wouldn't either. No. Maybe in ice hockey we might be able to take you on, but
How's your
bas-
oldest?
he's graduating high school today. He's 18. And we got
Oh, wow,
18
your
down
youngest?
to should be a year in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Wow.
How about you? What's your range?
8 and 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. 2 weeks. Oh, that's right. You just had one. Congratulations.
Yeah, I
Boy
said
or
it.
girl?
My first girl.
First girl. Wow.
4 boys, 1 girl.
Congratulations, dude.
What about you? What are you at?
3 boys and 2 girls.
Older?
Boy, girl, boy, girl.
Oh.
And I was worried about the second girl because I thought, am I possibly going to be able to love another girl as much as I love my first daughter? And the answer is yes, you can. It's a different love, but yes, you can do it. Yes, congratulations. That was a great snapshot. You basically answered all my questions without me asking them. So when you said, am I talking too much? You did not talk too much. You said exactly what I was going to ask. But there were some things that I want to poke at a little bit. Do you ever feel like you got over that hurdle of being able to go out and get customers and go out and sell yourself and go out? And if you did, how did you break through that over time?
I wouldn't say I have. And the reason I wouldn't say I have is if I get a warm lead, then my conversion rates are great. If someone is interested in what I have to offer, I'm very good at digging into what the problem set is, exploring 2 or 3 ideas, and then getting a feel for what they actually have an appetite for. What I'm not good is with like outreach. So outreach is something I'm very weak on, and something that I'm working on. So we just built a new website with a lot of pages. Over time, we'll be fleshing out this content and running separate campaigns for these different silos of the business. Meanwhile, there's no way I could fulfill everything, so I'm building out the relevant team to fulfill things for me too, at a very high standard and quality. It's you know what it is? It's just my personality isn't. I'm not a sales personality, and I think that's okay. I think you don't need to be talented in sales in order to do sales, but it is something that you do need to work on. By you, I mean myself. It's something that I need to work on over time, and I'm doing it. I'm also planning on creating a lot of content as well, specifically in the YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels side. I think that's where the traction is. Just bite-sized, valuable content that people can absorb, pick it up, get value out of it. And one thing I learned today, actually came across today, is when you create a piece of content, does it provide at least $5 of value to whoever is listening to it? So that's something I never thought about it from that standpoint.
I like that. I haven't thought about that either.
You do need to provide a minimal amount of value for someone to listen to, because their ears only have the capacity to listen to X amount a day. So if the more value you're generating on a consistent basis, the more people are going to tune into you, and the more you're going to broaden your reach as a business or as a business owner, and being able to expose the different types of solutions and problems you're solving for people.
Right.
The other thing which I'm also working on is never talk about technical things. As a programmer, I'm inclined to steer the conversation towards a technical solution.
Right.
But that's not how it works. It's about talking benefits. And that's something which I'm slowly trying to train myself to do, is just talking benefits. What are you solving for the user?
Yep.
What itch are you scratching for them? I think that's something which I never had to do And it's something that I have to do all the time now, which is difficult. Depending on your personality, I'm an introverted person, but it's important to do that. If you actually want to run a business and be approachable, where people can come to you and ask them to solve their problems, you need to have that tool in your shed.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I love the $5 thing. I love the Apple comparison. And I think being able to reconstruct the problems that you're hearing from the person on the call, a sales call, in a different way with the solution baked in is very powerful. Right? You hear their problem, you repeat it back to them, but you interweave the solution to the problem that they're solving.
Yes.
So they hear it from another perspective and they go, oh yeah, that is exactly what my problem is, and that sounds like a great solution.
I hate it. Because I'm on the different directories as a business owner, I get spam calls, emails pitching me all day long. I hate it when I do take that call. They're just like reading off a script. Like they're telling me they love my business,
Right.
even though they obviously know nothing about it.
Yep.
I don't like that. That means that they're not doing their homework. They're not really solving my problem. They're just trying to sell to me.
Yeah.
And I'm very. That's one of the problems. I need to know that I'm solving a problem before I engage with any type of prospect. And that's a personality thing. Other people can sign a contract before talking to someone. They don't care.
Right.
They're like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
I can definitely, to your credit, we were talking about this a little bit before we started. It's been a few years since we first met. It's probably been a couple years since we've got to hang out on a call, but your demeanor has definitely changed a bit. You seem more comfortable in talking about your business, and not that you blew me away when we had our initial calls, and I was looking for someone as a non-technical person at the time in that role. I was looking for somebody like you to feed me the stuff that I needed from the technical side, and you did a great job of doing that. But I can tell you've gotten more comfortable in your role as like business owner guy now, which is a little bit different than you were consultant Michel back then. You're business owner Michel today, and it seems like you figured some stuff out. So I'm proud of you. That's good stuff.
I think a large part of that is because of Upwork.
Yeah, well, Upwork's a cheat code, man. Unfortunately, it's turning into a little bit of a, I'm not going to say the word cesspool on recording, but it's, when they went public, I knew it was going to be a problem. They started doing things like adding those bids for contracts and a bunch of other kind of stuff that's, the work's still there. I still love it. I get a lot of money out of those contracts, and they're very lucrative. It's hard for me to recommend people go start there like I did 10 years ago or whatever. I think if you started there a while back, it's a little easier than it is today.
The thing is, like, I use it for hiring, like, people to solve short-term problems. The problem is, like, I don't want to talk to anyone less than 95% rating. Right. And B, like, there's a lot of, the thing with the platform like Upwork is, there's no room for feeling someone out. So let's take it as an example. I have to do a ridiculous amount of underwriting on whether I want to take on a client on Upwork.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I think that they don't have reasonable expectations, or they're just going to blackmail me for the rating afterwards, or scope creep everything, and they're not clear with the scope of requirements, then they're not gonna be pleasantly surprised with the delivery.
Right.
So with Upwork, I need to be sure that I'm gonna exceed expectations by a mile. Otherwise, they got a noose around my neck. They can say, "Oh, you know what? I can give you a bad rating."
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, I've got a 100% rating, but like I work many hours on top of what I get paid for to make sure of that.
But you get a great digital business card having that vetted rating that you pop up. I always tell people don't do it when I tell you to because it won't work. But my dumb face shows up pretty close to the top in the world for manual and automated testing on Upwork just from the profile that I built. That's a free quote unquote thing, but we've had to dump, like you said, hours and hours of extra time in. You've got to hold hands. You've got to make concessions when you normally wouldn't to preserve that digital business card, a digital bill. It's almost like a billboard. It's a billboard. your face shows up, and you need that to get those hooks in. Let's switch gears real quick. I heard about your first customer. You didn't bring it up directly, so I don't want to ask about that. But as a dad of 5 and a business owner, and we're all over 30 at this point, we'll leave it at that. What are 3 kind of things you're doing to increase your longevity health-wise personally for yourself?
Oh, it's a good question. It's something, so I'll be the first one to say I'm 40. Since I turned 40, I felt my body change. I don't know if it's mental. It could be mental, I'm not 100% sure. But I felt like my metabolism just wasn't what it was
Right.
as before. Now, it's also because I'm playing less sports and whatnot, but like the past few months, I really felt like we had a few tragedies in my family the past year, which I've been absorbed with. But now I'm trying to make sure I'm getting healthy, getting at my ideal weight. So one thing I've actually been doing is I started doing yoga in my bedroom.
Beautiful.
Amazon Prime.
There you go. I like it.
I tell you, it's at the time it's 25 minutes. I can do it before I leave in the morning or when I get home before I go to bed. But 25 minutes, I can get my bones and my muscles stretched out. That's one thing which I really feel like helps me. Yoga is good because I like to stretch out. I sit down a lot during the day. It's important to do that. The other thing that I do is I don't drink much, or I'm not a partier or anything, but I want to get back into running and swimming. Those are swimming in the summer. Now the pools are open. I'm going to go swimming outdoors, trying a week, and jogging as my needs allow me. But those are the things. It's very important because every time I do it, I just feel like my decision making and my mood is much better.
Oh yeah.
For kids, it's like being patient with little kids is just so hard. I don't care.
I have no idea what you mean. I have
Some people are
unlimited
probably saying,
patience.
"Why do you have so many kids?" If you
I have
think
unlimited. I know that's the worst part. It's not fair. People are like, "Why do you have those kids?" And I was like, I can't give them back at this point.
I don't want to give them back, but I'm saying
I don't. But
that they want this. Every child needs a different amount of attention, and you have to provide that attention. Otherwise, you have this fear that they're just gonna go off the reservation.
yeah.
I've got a 4-year-old who threatens to walk out the door like 3 times.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Regularly.
I know he'll never do it. He's too scared to do it, but he's got that kind of attitude. So, but it's important. Like it's important for me to have my alone time and just do some exercise, count the number of laps I've been doing, or count the number of steps I've done in a jog or miles or whatever it is, like a personal challenge, which has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I don't know what you do, but
I like all those. I love every one of those. I think I have a routine that I try to say I get up before the gremlins do. So I get up at 5. I work out, do my 30 to 45-minute workout. I do a full body stretch, so your yoga thing hits dead on with me. Meditation and journaling, I call it my 5 for 5. And if I can get that in, like you said, if I've not only my like crisp mentally, I feel like I could run through a fucking wall, man. Like you feel differently, your patience level is different. So being active is the number one thing that I always hear, and I totally agree. So last thing, mystery question. You've done a lot. Your bucket list can't be but so big. So non-business related, the answer can't be I want to grow my business to be the biggest thing in the world. What is something you would do if you knew you couldn't fail?
what I would do if I knew I couldn't fail? Oh gosh, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Are we talking about personal?
Sure, anything you want. What's something you would do if you knew you couldn't fail? Mine would be to keep my dog from barking right now.
You know what? I one of my biggest concerns is, am I going to mess up with my kids? That's a big fear that I have, and I always say you're not the first person to have a bunch of kids, but I think the time that we live in, it's very different to previous generations. The amount of control we've lost to technology and social media and we've put into our children's hands, and there's no detracting it. Like, your kid can't be the only one who doesn't have a cell phone in them.
Yeah.
They're going to find their way on YouTube one way or another.
As many times you try to block it on the router.
Yeah,
it
somehow
will
they
fire.
always guess the passcode for the screen time on
Yes.
iPads too. But if it was one thing I could do, it would be basically planning the next, let's say, the first 18 years for my kids, right? What is the right amount of, like, what is the right amount of hand holding versus pushing my kids to succeed, right? Because the kids are going to fail, they are going to make mistakes, and we need to allow them to do that. But that, I don't know if that really answers your question. Like, if what am I doing exactly that is not failing? I think it would be solving that problem.
I think that's fair. I like that. That's a different one. I like
If it
basically
was,
planning your kid's future out
if it
in a
was
way that optimizes that it doesn't fail. I like that.
if it wasn't to be, if it was to be um, more, I guess, ambition beyond my family versus something commercial, I really want to build a product. So I'm actually running a service business right now,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be a product which people will benefit. At least 1 million people will benefit.
Me too. Maybe we should make one.
Yeah,
I'm a service business. I heard this phrase. Every service business guy wants to make a product, and every
yeah.
business guy wants to make a service. So like, I'm right there with you.
I paid a lot of money to figure out that I had a service business, not a technology business.
Okay.
I paid a lot of money. I did a course on tech startup marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and halfway through the course, they're like, "What are you doing here? You have a service business. You don't have a SaaS product or whatever it is." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah. Do you
crap."
guys accept refunds?
Yeah, I'm building a product which, like, I'll give you an example. Like, most people do not know anything about personal finance.
Right.
They learn about it once the credit card bills come in. But in order, like, having a QuickBooks of your accounts, and beyond that, you have your P&L, you have your balance sheet, having even a cash flow statement, like having that automated, I think is an opportunity which no one's really solved on a personal level. I think Mint is trying to do it.
I think people just don't care enough, right? It's one of
They
those
don't.
things. I think it's that and I'm guilty of it too. Is like it's one of those things that if everything's fine, you can ignore it, right? You're just like, I don't need. It stresses me out. Right now, it doesn't, so I'm not gonna look at it, right? I feel like I handle too much of my finances like that, and I feel like that maybe it's just generational, right? Our parents balance checkbooks and shit. We don't do that. We don't have that locked into our day-to-day finance thing, and I think that's why a lot of those companies fail, is because just this generation, number one, doesn't care, but they're also scared to look, and then when you're scared to look, it's like it's hard to build a platform for somebody like that.
Look, I saw there was a video by Bill Ackman, the hedge fund guy,
Yeah.
on setting up a lemonade stand, and it was a pretty thorough. He was basically explaining how to run a startup using a lemonade stand, and it's very basic. So this last Memorial Day weekend, I got my kids to run a lemonade stand because there's a parade in the high street and lots of traffic, and it was amazing because I want those animal spirits in my kids a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
They need to have that the hunger and, I guess, forthrightness to go hunt. I think the earlier they learn that, the better that'll grow up with them. And I thought it was really amazing. Looking at my kids from a fishbowl perspective of how they handled the idea of customer acquisition, getting their first customer for the lemonade stand. It was really.
I'll have to have them on the show. I'll have to have them on the podcast.
Yeah, one of the. It's very interesting. My second son, he's 7. He's the shyest kid in the world. But when it comes to making a couple of dollars, he'll talk to anyone. And it was just such a joy to see. He was like going up to people, like, "Do you want lemonade?" It's people like he would never even look at them when they said it.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. I think these types of things aren't taught in school.
No.
Kids aren't taught anything about personal finance in school, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It should be one of the first things on the curriculum, if you ask me.
Yep.
More so than the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, or AP Government. I always wondered why I was taking AP Government, learning the things that I was learning
Yeah.
instead of how to.
And I think
finance.
it's like building a product which just allows people to and some people can't do it. They're not good with numbers. They're not comfortable with numbers. They don't know how to calculate things on a monthly basis versus an annual expense and this and that. But if you have a product like QuickBooks for dummies, that will be a very gratifying thing to see people just have better management of the finances.
I like that. You're a service guy looking to build a product, and you can't fail in that example anyway, so that's perfect. You can build that. All right, let's end it there. This was great. I feel like we've got a lot of catching up to do outside of this podcast.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Michel, brilliant guy, great story. Super proud of you for the family and businesses you built, man.
You.
Keep up the good work. Where can people find you or Mila Labs if they're looking to find you?
Sure. Our website is milalabs.com. You can contact me through there. We're Real Mila Labs on Twitter, Real Mila Labs on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on my name. You can feel free to connect.
I'll link you in the description.
Yeah, for sure.
You. They will find.
Come to me with any of your problems. I love diverse problem sets. So
diverse problem sets. You should put that as your headline on LinkedIn. I love diverse problem sets. You probably get a lot of interesting messages.
Problem is that most problems are not diverse enough.
Not for you. Not with somebody with your background. Yeah. All right. Be good, brother. It's great talking to you, and we'll catch up soon, all right? Thanks, Michel. See you, buddy.
Bye-bye.